Okay, perfect. So we're just going to start it off. This is Amber McNeil. She's a licensed financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual. She's passionate about helping individuals, especially women, build confidence and take meaningful action toward their financial futures. Proud New Jersey girl, now based in Los Angeles, Amber holds both a master's and bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, a state university of New Jersey. Prior to becoming a financial advisor, Amber had a 10-year career working in higher education where she saw firsthand how ill-equipped society's brightest students were when it came to managing their personal finances. With a heart for community and a mission-driven approach, she is currently on a journey to help 100 women become wealth builders this year. When Amber isn't working one-on-one with clients, she loves sharing wealth-building tools with larger audiences, speaking on local and national platforms. Amber is a lover of her faith, game nights with friends, and spending time with her family. I'll let you take it over.
Thank you, Rachel, so much. Thank you for that introduction and super excited to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to connect with your members. And I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to be sharing my screen, and the title of today's workshop is From Hustle to Harvest, a Nanny's Guide to Retirement Planning. And this is a really, really important topic because when you're a nanny or a business owner, right, you don't necessarily have an HR department who is saying, hey, let's make sure you sign up for these benefits, or hey, let's make sure you're planning and saving towards retirement. And I would say in general, one of the number one goals that clients come to me with is goals around retirement and asking the question of, when can I retire? I'm ready to retire early. Am I going to have enough money to retire? Am I going to run out of money in retirement? And so just a little bit about my personal story, and thank you for reading my bio. Really, part of my love for finance and part of the reason why I do what I do is because I experienced firsthand parents who loved them, but they were ill-equipped and very financially illiterate. And so both of my parents are well into their 60s, and because they never sat down with a financial advisor and no one ever really talked to them about the importance of retiring and saving towards the goal of retirement, truthfully, I don't know when they're going to be able to retire. I know sometimes we see, if we go to like Walmart, we'll see an older person who's greeting, and sometimes it's because they just enjoy working, and sometimes, unfortunately, it's because maybe they didn't save enough towards the goal of retirement. And so I'm very passionate around helping people think long term when it comes to retirement. And so that's why we're doing this topic today. And feel free to, like I mentioned, come off mute, share questions in the chat. Rachel's going to be moderating for us today. Okay, so in the United States, we are definitely in a hustle mode culture. As it was mentioned, I live in Los Angeles, and I feel like New York and Los Angeles are like the two hustle capitals of the United States, right? Everybody's here has a dream, and they're working towards something. And so a lot of people are working hard, but there is no plan. So the whole purpose of this workshop today is to go from, how do we go from hustling to harvest? And harvest is just being able to reap what you've sown over your years of working in retirement. So when we think about the hustle mode mindset, it's like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I can't afford not to work. I can't afford to maybe be working as a nanny, and then also I need a part-time job to make ends meet. When we think about it in the context of that harvest being retirement, oftentimes there's no clear retirement plan. And that can create a lot of stress and anxiety when we don't have a plan and we don't know how to get to that goal. And then oftentimes when we're in hustle mode, it really blinds us from long-term goals and thinking about future. So we're so focused on prioritizing immediate expenses and immediate need that we're not thinking about some of our long-term goals. So I'm here to help us today to shift some of that mindset to realize we're not going to be able to work forever. We're not made to work forever. And so how can we start thinking about and planning towards our future? So I'm curious in the chat. I love interaction. I always tell people you don't want to just listen to me talk the whole time. So I'm curious to know, what does retirement mean to you? When you hear the word retirement, what do you envision? Does it feel like a far off concept? Is it just something you haven't thought about at all? But I'm curious in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, what feelings or thoughts does this word invoke in you?
I can jump in too. Um, Honestly, I don't think I'll ever retire because I like to be go, go, go and do everything.
Okay.
But like the word retirement to me means like relaxation. I think of
Mm,
like old people sitting on a beach, like enjoying, like slowing down to enjoy life, or
yeah.
traveling more. Those are all things that pop up for me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of exciting, but also it's not something I really think about. It doesn't really cross my mind. And like
Yeah.
recently, connecting with you, like it's really made me like, okay, wait a second. I need to slow down and like actually figure out a plan here and
Yeah.
figure out what to do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Some of the common thoughts or feelings that come up for a lot of folks when I first meet with them, is feelings of feeling behind, feeling like, oh my gosh, I should have started doing this a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I always tell people, we can't change the past, but we can start today and build a plan going forward. And so thank you so much for sharing that. So again, why is retirement planning essential? So it allows us to move from working to living comfortably in retirement, provides a clear vision and plan for your retirement years, and then helps ensure financial independence later in life. I want to stick to that last point for a second. So oftentimes I work with families, right? So there'll be, parents and then children. And oftentimes parents are very concerned about building up, college savings for their child. And oftentimes they will ask me, hey, is it better for me to save into a retirement, a vehicle like a 529 account that is geared towards college education, so that by the time my child gets to college, they won't have to take out student loans? Like, that's a really important goal for a lot of families. And while that's an excellent goal, I always tell my clients, there's a million ways that your child can pay for college. Maybe it's going to have to be student loans. Maybe it's grants. Maybe it's scholarships. Maybe it's a work study program where they can contribute to their education. But there's only one, once you're in your 60s or 70s, we can't expand your life, right? You're not going to automatically just start getting younger. So there's only really one path, right? And that's to retirement. So really, your children will thank you if by the time it is time to retire, you don't have to rely financially on them, because you've built up your own financial independence, that you can actually retire and retire well without having to now have your children take on the financial responsibility because you haven't prepared or planned for retirement. The other thing to think about is, right now, while you're in hustle mode, you're actually in what we call growth or wealth accumulation mode. Because you're in a time in your life where you're income generating, you have the opportunity to accumulate wealth. But once we're in retirement, it's a whole different set of rules and guidelines and a whole different plan, because now you're in that distribution phase. All the things I've worked for, all the assets I've built are now being distributed. So really two different plans. So we're going to talk about this harvest framework for retirement. And I've been in this whole I've been using like a lot of garden analogies lately, and I have a business coach, and we did this exercise. And one of the things that came out of that was the word bloom. And I've been thinking about a lot about the concept of being in full bloom and what does it mean to bloom, physically, mentally, financially. And so we're gonna go with the same theme of like the garden and planting. So this is a harvest framework for retirement. And initially, we are planting seeds. So when you're first starting to save, or you first think about a plant, you're just planting those seeds and it might feel like nothing is really happening. So maybe you're contributing to a retirement account and right now the market is down, so you might be like, "Oh my gosh, nothing is happening. Actually, it's going backwards. What did I do?" Next, we're looking at nurturing and growth. So that's after we get past the shock of like, okay, let me open the account. Let me make that first deposit. Getting on a regular contribution and investing schedule will start to really nourish and water that retirement. And then looking at weeding out. So, what are the things that are really choking our goal of retirement? Those are things like debt and poor spending habits that are suctioning money away from the goal of retirement. And then preparing for that harvest. And so, knowing the number, like what's that magic number that you need to get to by the time you're in retirement, so that you can actually live comfortably. And what are some of the different income streams that you're going to build? So we're going to touch lightly on each of these topics today. Rachel, I saw some things in the chat. Anything for me?
So I think it might be delayed a little bit. It was just her thoughts on retirement, what it means to her.
Okay.
Just being able to stop working or work much less without sacrificing her lifestyle. And
Yeah,
then it does feel off to them and maybe even possible.
yeah. Okay. And I want to kind of touch back on that when we go, there's going to be a section called Know Your Number. And we'll talk about kind of lifestyle and what that looks like. So when we think about nurturing growth and investing and staying consistent, the reason why we want to stay consistent when we're looking at planning towards retirement, so continuing to make those contributions even when it feels like nothing is happening, is because this little powerful thing called compound interest. And so compound interest is when you make an investment, right? And that investment is growing and it's producing income inside of the investment called interest. That interest is then reinvested into the portfolio, and now you're getting interest on top of your interest. And so when we think about how to make sure we're consistently nurturing our garden here, we want to just make sure that we're staying consistent and we're building a plan for regular contributions to our retirement accounts. And when we think about some folks feel like, well, I only have $50 a month to contribute to this account. That is okay. That is our seed. And we can look at how can we start to increase our saving to that little pot over time. So when we think about weeding out debt and bad financial habits, I'm curious to know if you're not currently investing regularly, do you feel like it's an income problem or a spending problem? So do we feel like just based on my rent, my fixed expenses, there's just not enough income coming in to contribute to, a 401k or a Roth IRA? Or do we feel like there's probably some room in my planning where I could be making these contributions, but my money is going towards eating out or paying off high interest rate credit cards? I'm curious to know. Oh, Alice is coming off chat. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Amber. So to answer that question, I think it is for me, it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Because I do make contributions, but I don't max out my contributions each year. But I think the issue with that is I do work as an employee, but I also, for the majority of my income, I am an independent contractor, and that's where
Got
my
it.
money is coming in. So because I need to save money to pay taxes at the end of the year, and I don't necessarily know how much that will be each year, I think my main concern is like saving for that. And then I'm a little scared to like
Yeah.
put more into my retirement account, because then if I'm strapped for what I owe in taxes at the end of the year, then, you know.
Yeah. No, that's a great I'm glad you brought that up with you being an independent contractor, because number one, and I'm sure you're already working with a tax person or a CPA, but do you feel like you're in a position to be able to write off some of your expenses to lower your taxable income?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
So this past tax season was my first year with my business. And I
Okay.
was able to write off quite a bit.
Good,
Um,
good.
so that was a pleasant surprise.
Good, yeah. So for anyone who's on the call who doesn't realize, if you are an independent contractor or if you're receiving 1099 income, separate from your W-2, or if you're not a W-2 at all, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons of if you're 1099 or W-2. Um, but if you're 1099 or have your own business, you have the opportunity to write off some of your expenses. And so that could be, if you're working out of your home, that could be a portion of your mortgage or your rent. If you're, mileage, or you have to buy certain equipment or certain uniforms for work, there's opportunity to write that out. And then Alice, for you also working with your tax professional, there's opportunity for you to also pay taxes quarterly versus at the end of the year. Have you ever thought about that or considered that?
I have thought about that, and I've done it in the past.
Okay.
But I think like going forward, my job is really changing, and so I'm not sure how much I'm gonna even be making.
Got it.
So
Okay.
a part of me wants to be able to hold on to some of that money throughout the year
Understood.
if
Understood.
my income fluctuates.
Yeah, understood. Okay. One thing I want to say about, again, weeding out our bad habits and looking at debt, there are two schools of thought in terms of how to pay down debt, right? So, have you all heard of the snowball method versus the avalanche method? Give me a thumbs up or put a yes in the chat if we've heard about these two methods of paying down debt. A lot of folks, and I can actually open the chat. Okay, yes. So a lot of folks have heard of the snowball one. That's what I was about to say. So a lot of folks have heard of the snowball method of paying down debt. And the snowball method just says you are going to focus on putting all your extra money to the credit card or the loan, whatever the debt is, with the lowest balance. Meaning if you have, let's say, 3 credit cards, one is $1,000, one is $2,000, and one is $3,000 balance, you're going to focus on paying down that $1,000 credit card first. And the other 2 credit cards, you're going to only pay the minimum balance, right? A lot of people like that method because psychologically, we like to be rewarded. So if you see like, oh, wow, I paid down this small balance quickly, and now the money that I was paying there can go to this other card, psychologically, it makes us feel really good. But when we look mathematically, and as a financial advisor, the math has the math, as they say, it's actually going to work out better financially in the long run if we do the avalanche method. And the avalanche method says we're going to look at the interest rates of all 3 cards, and we are going to focus on paying down the card with the highest interest rate. Because when an interest rate is high, that means it's expensive or more expensive, or it's costing us more to carry that balance, to carry that debt. Versus when we have, let's say you had a 0% interest card or a very low interest credit card that has a balance, it's okay to take a little bit longer to pay on that card, because the amount you will have paid in interest by the time you pay it off will be a lot less than if you leave a high balance on that card with a higher interest rate. So when looking at, okay, how can I start to weed out some of the things that are choking my ability to contribute consistently to retirement, debt is really one of those large items on our monthly expense sheet that if we didn't have to pay this debt, we'd be able to contribute more. So hearing the difference between the two, are folks understanding like why the avalanche method is actually mathematically better for us, or do we have questions or thoughts about that? I'm curious to know from the chat. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
That does make sense. I guess maybe you'll get to this, but I'm wondering, do you think that it is important to pay, like, just contribute a little bit to retirement while also paying down debt? Or do you think it's more important to just focus on getting that debt eliminated and then contributing more once you have more?
That's a great question. A lot of folks ask the question like, hey, I've got these large debt balances. I want to focus on paying them down. And then after they're paid down, I'm going to start contributing to retirement. And while I definitely understand and can empathize with that as someone myself who has gone through the process of having debt in the past and paying it down and feeling like I'm so strapped, the reason why we still want to really incorporate as much of our income as possible, as it makes sense in our budget to goals like retirement, is because it's about time in the market, not timing the market. So back to the concept of the compound interest, that only happens if we have time in the market. So timing, not timing, time, literally just years, is what is really going to propel you to that retirement goal. So someone who starts aggressively saving towards retirement in their 40s is going to have to save a lot more per month than someone who started in their 30s, just by the sheer fact of the amount of time that that person that's in their 30s, the amount of time that that investment is going to be in the market and growing. And so I know there are some schools of thought that say, if you have debt, you shouldn't focus on investing at all. I'm not that person. I'm of the school of thought that, yes, you have debt, we want to pay that debt down, but it's important that you jump in and start contributing as soon as possible to your retirement goals. Now, we're thinking about paying down debt and some strategies in terms of lowering monthly payments. So I have had many clients have success with getting their interest rates lowered by just going to their bank, the institution, whoever's holding that credit card, and saying, hey, I'm having some trouble paying this debt consistently. My interest rate is really high. What are my options? So you want to look at options that allow you to keep the credit card or the loan open. We don't want to close out a credit card. We never want to, if we can help it, we want to keep our lines of credit and our credit cards open. But banks typically have an option where you can freeze your credit card. It's usually anywhere from 6 months to a year that they'll freeze it, not close it, and they will drop your interest rate. I have two specific stories of one client who had a credit card with Wells Fargo. They dropped her interest rate down to 1% for 12 months. And I have another client, we just chatted about this with Chase, and they dropped her interest rate down to 12% for 1 year. And so dropping those interest rates down is now allowing for those monthly minimum payments to be a lot less. And because those payments are a lot less, they have a little bit more breathing room to either save or invest. So you have options. Don't ever feel like, oh, I'm going to be stuck with this high interest credit card. You can always go to them and negotiate and tell them like, hey, I'm having a hardship. What are my options? The other option you have is to do what is called a balance transfer. So a balance transfer is when you open up a new credit card and you take advantage of the introductory promo rate of 0% interest. And when there's that 0% interest, usually they'll say 0% interest for 15 months or 0% interest for 18 months on any balance transfers. So that gives you the opportunity to essentially pay off one credit card by using the credit limit from another credit card, and you're able to take advantage of that 0% introductory rate, which again gives you some breathing room and allows the payment that you're making to that credit card anyway to actually go towards the principal versus half of it going towards interest. And then the third thing when we're looking at opening up some breathing room in our monthly cash flow is just doing something called debt consolidation. So that's where you work with a third party, typically lender, who's going to offer you a low interest rate loan to pay off all your other, if you have multiple credit cards, and then you're just paying back that low interest loan to that one lender. Now, when we're looking at things like the balance transfer or the debt consolidation, it's really important that prior to doing that, going that route, that we address spending habits, right? Because if our spending habits haven't changed, we're going to pay down that debt. We're going to do that balance transfer. But then now this card is opened back up to us. We now have accessible credit on this credit card. And if we haven't changed our spending habits, it's very enticing to go back and start spending again. So whenever we're looking at changing spending habits, we first want to get clear about what am I currently spending money on. One of the things that I do with clients, when they're first onboarding with me, is I have them fill out a budget sheet because it's important for me to understand and for them to understand where their money is actually going. And then from there, we look at, are there areas that we're just leaking money that we don't need to? And can we address some of those spending habits head on? The second thing is when we're in a space where we're trying to pay down debt, trying not to spend on credit card, I'll often encourage my clients to transition to a cash-based budget, meaning no debit card, no credit card spending. We're only as much as possible using cash. The reason that is a really, again, it's all about these little mental tricks that we can play with ourselves. The reason why that's valuable is because when we're swiping our debit card or our credit card, we don't have a mental or physical connection to the money leaving our account. But if we know that at the beginning of the week, we allotted ourselves $100 of, discretionary eating out money, and by Wednesday, we've only got 20 bucks left. Well, mentally, we see like, oh, I really can't eat out the rest of this week because I've only got 20 bucks left. So that's a strategy that I like to use with my clients when we're in a space where we need to A, pay down debt, and B, address any spending habits. Any questions about those pieces? Okay. So looking at thinking about knowing our number. So, oh, and I see something in the chat here. Okay, Elio, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I think you commented you were gonna share. Feel free to come off mute.
Hi there.
Hi,
Hi. You were saying it correctly. It's Elio.
Elio.
So I'm just kind of listening as I get ready for the morning.
Uh-huh.
But My problem is that I have a budget for like eating out. You were just talking about this. And I guess I kind of have the money, but I put myself like, I'll put a budget of like 100 or 150, and then
Mhm.
I go over it and I'm not like constantly checking my budget. And
Yeah,
so I know that I have the extra money that I should be like saving, but because
mhm.
I know that I have the extra money, like I'll just keep spending and I'll keep eating out. Like
Yeah.
that's my issue.
I feel that, let me tell you. Especially when I'm stressed, I'm like, oh, who cares about the budget, right? We'll figure it out next week. And I think that's really where that cash-based budget
Yeah.
comes into play because it starts to train yourself and build some discipline around knowing that, okay, this is my budget and I'm planning, I have other goals for the rest of my money. And so I actually want to go back to thinking about contributions to the goal of retirement. So when we have our income and we're deciding how to divvy up our budget or create our savings plan in an ideal world, and I say ideal because I live in Los Angeles and it's very expensive to live here. Um, Ideally, no more than 60% of our income should be going to our fixed expenses. So fixed expenses are things that we need to live. We don't have a choice, whether it's rent or mortgage, car payment, those minimum debt payments, groceries. These are essential expenses. 20% going towards our saving and investing goals. So that 20% could be divvied up between just emergency savings, retirement savings, maybe if you do have children, college savings, and then even just general savings into a brokerage account for goals that are maybe 5 to 10 years down the line. And when I work with clients, we look at, okay, I've got this surplus, or here's my 20%. How should I be divvying this up? So the reason why it's important to have a goal around retirement is because when you are spending and we are eating out, we've got to remember that every dollar that is not going into this 20% bucket for saving and investing, it's going somewhere else, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So 20% of our income going to discretionary or fund money. But oftentimes we're in a space where that 20% for discretionary is actually like 30, 35, 40% of our entire budget. And we're not actually carving anything out for our saving and investing goals. So the first thing I would say for you, Elio, is to actually sit down and say, hey, what are some of my financial goals? Do I need to build up my emergency savings? What's that number that I need to get to? Is it 5,000, 10,000, 20,000? And that's just going to be based on 3 to 6 months of your expenses, right? That emergency savings. And then look at our retirement goals. So a lot of people, when we think about the goal of retirement, it feels very daunting. Like, I have no idea what my life is going to look like. I don't know what my retirement number is. And so that's where working with a financial advisor, or even you can go online and you can look up retirement calculators and you can punch in, like, hey, I want to retire by this age. I want to have this amount of income in retirement. What is that number in terms of retirement assets that I need to get to by the time I retire? And what's the dollar amount per month that I need to be saving towards that goal? So we can actually get really granular to have a sense of like, okay, what do I need to be doing today, even if I can't hit that full amount? So let's say you realize, oh, I need to be saving $1,000 a month to hit my retirement goal. I can't do that right now. That's okay. Can we save $200 a month towards that goal and then build up from there? But things we want to think about in retirement are like, what state am I going to live in? Am I going to live in the United States? What will healthcare look like? How is inflation going to play a role in eating at my retirement assets? So getting clear on what you want your retirement lifestyle to be is going to be really important. Any questions about this piece? Okay. You all are great. I love that folks are just coming off of mute. So I would love to do a little visualization exercise. And like I said, I've been working with a business coach. And so we do a lot of like, envision your future. So we're going to do that together. And feel free to take notes or to write in the chat or to come off mute and share. But I would love for us to just take a moment and visualize what retirement might look like. And when we think about retirement as a financial planner, we tell folks when you're retired, every day is Saturday. Every day is a vacation day, right? Because you don't have to wake up and go to work. So what does an ideal day in retirement look like? Where are we at? What time are we waking up? What kind of food are we eating? Who are we spending time with? What does that ideal day look like for you? What are you wearing? What are you watching that day? So just take a moment to visualize that and take some notes on it. And now, as you're thinking about this life, based on today's dollars, don't worry about inflation. Don't worry about, how much things are going to cost in the future. Thinking about in today's dollars in 2025, what is that monthly income number that you would need based on today's dollars to be able to live this vision of retirement that you have? So just take a moment, do some quick math. I always tell folks an easy way to come to this number is just to think about how much income you're currently bringing in. And do we need more than that? Or can we live off less? Does our ideal day in retirement look like just hanging out on the porch and sipping lemonade? And so we don't need that much to do that, right? Or does it look like, as one of my clients, spending a month in Spain? You might need some extra cash to do that, right? So just take another 30 seconds to really get really clear about what that looks like for you. And so if you have that number right there, part of what we do as financial planners is we take that number and then we put it into our system and we run an analysis for you. And we incorporate things like inflation and, rate of return on investments and all of that. And we help you come to a number that you would need in retirement. And then we work backwards to determine how much we need to be saving each month to hit that goal. So when we think about growing our money, there's some things that we want to consider. So the concept of diversification. So oftentimes when we open up an investment account and we're thinking about, okay, I've put some money in the account. Now I need to actually invest it. How do I do that? What does that even mean? And oftentimes people make emotional decisions with their money. I'm people. Even though I'm a financial advisor, I have a financial advisor because I'm going to make emotional decisions with my money. And when we're thinking about our retirement account, diversification is really important. So I'll have some folks who say, hey, my whole retirement account is invested in Apple, Tesla, and Microsoft because I really like these three stocks. I really like these three companies, and they seem to have done well historically. That is great. That is not a great diversification strategy for our retirement portfolio. When we're thinking about our retirement portfolio, these are dollars that are going to be invested long term, and we want to make sure that we're spreading out some of our risk. So when we're invested in just a few individual stocks, if one or two of those individual stocks plummets, our entire portfolio is down. When we're thinking about things like our retirement portfolio, which is money that we're really going to be depending on later on, we want to think about things like ETFs and mutual funds. And ETFs and mutual funds are a basket of many different stocks and bonds. And what's great about investing in things like ETFs or mutual funds is that there's some Apple in there. You can have some Microsoft in there. You can have some Tesla in there if those are things you like. But let's say those 1 or 2 or 3 stocks goes down. That's okay because you've got maybe 100 other stocks in that one mutual fund that you bought that are going to help to bring your portfolio back up. So things like our retirement account, in an ideal world, we don't want to be just invested in individual stocks. We want to have a more diversified strategy. The other thing we want to think about is asset allocation. And what that means is the comparison between stocks or equities or the more aggressive part of our portfolio to the bond or safety side of our portfolio. If you have 20 to 30 to 40 years left before you're going to be retiring, we want to have a more aggressive asset allocation. So that might look like an 80-20 portfolio. 80% stocks or equities, 20% bond, okay, or fixed income. So if you see fixed income, that means bond. If you see equities, that means the stock side. So thinking about, okay, when am I looking to retire and how can I match my asset allocation to the retirement goal? And then with that, also looking at our risk tolerance. How comfortable am I with those market swings, those up and downs, right? And so if we have 20, 30, 40 years left until retirement, we want to, as I mentioned, have a more aggressive risk tolerance because you don't need that money tomorrow. So thinking about my clients right now who maybe have a 401k and they're freaking out because maybe their portfolio is down by 5 to 10%. And my conversation is, hey, do we need this money today? Do we need this money tomorrow? No, then we're okay. We're not retiring today. So let's let the market do what it does. It's going to rebalance. What goes down is going to come back up. And so just understanding that when you are a little bit more aggressive and taking on more risk in your portfolio, you're going to experience some of those up and downs a little bit more. And then again, just thinking, having a long-term mindset. So this is your retirement account is not an account they're going to be doing a bunch of buying and selling and trading. You want it to be steady. You want it to be methodical. You're going to put the same amount in every month and buy the same fund every single month, buy into that fund every single month. We're not going in and saying like, oh, Tesla was up today, let me buy that. We're not doing that in our retirement account. There are other accounts that you can, but this is specifically around retirement. Questions about that piece? And I don't see anything in the chat. Okay. So what are some of the different retirement accounts that you have access to? And there's actually one more on here that I didn't add. And so, Alice, I'm glad you brought up the 1099 income because there's another account that you have access to. So the most common that folks have heard of is a 401k. So a 401k is an employer-sponsored tax-deferred retirement account. What that means is it's an investment account that is specifically for retirement that is offered by your employer. The money that you contribute to that account is going in tax-free. You've never paid taxes on this money. You're deferring taxes, excuse me. So let's say you're contributing 5% of each check into a 401k. That means when you go to do your taxes, your income, your taxable income is going to be reduced by that 5% that you contributed. So there was no tax of that money. However, on the back end, when we go to take that money out in retirement, we are going to have to pay taxes on every single dollar that we take out. So the money that we put in plus any growth in that account is going to come out taxable. Also, if you have a 401k, there's a good chance that your employer may give you a match. So they might say, hey, you put 3% in, we'll put 3% in, and now we have 6% going towards your goal of retirement. More commonly, there are now vehicles called Roth 401ks, because a lot of employers are seeing the benefit of allowing folks to contribute to a Roth. And with a Roth 401k, you are paying taxes upfront through your paycheck. Every dollar that goes into that Roth 401k gets invested and it grows. Every dollar that comes out once you're 59 and a half comes out tax-free. So with each of these three accounts, whether it's the 401k, the IRA, or the Roth IRA, they are all retirement accounts. And when you see something that's a retirement account, there are some age restrictions. That age restriction is 59 and a half. I'm going to pause. I see something in the chat. Okay, great question from Alice. Do you recommend having both a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA as an independent contractor? So, Alice, it depends on what your goals are in terms of reducing your taxable income. So let's say, you were able to write a whole bunch of things off, but then it's still looking like you're going to owe more in taxes. And let's say you have some money in savings and you're like, you know what, instead of me paying more in taxes, I'd much rather contribute to my traditional IRA, which is an IRA is an individual retirement account, not connected to our employer. And contributing to that traditional IRA is going to give you a tax break today. But it's important to remember that on the back end, once we're 59 and a half and in retirement, we will have to take some of that. We will have to pay taxes on all of that money. So it's a matter of, do we want to pay taxes today or do we want to pay taxes tomorrow? If we're in a situation where we really need to lower our taxable income, I do recommend contributing to things like the traditional IRA. And so the traditional IRA, oops, I'm sorry about that. The traditional IRA, again, is an individual account similar to the 401k. It is tax deferred, meaning you're not paying any taxes on it and you're actually going to get a tax break today, but you'll have to pay taxes on it later. A Roth IRA, you're paying taxes through your check, or you're paying taxes through when you go to file your taxes in April, and you can contribute to that account. But when you take money out, 59 and a half, every dollar comes out tax-free. I do recommend that if we already have the 401k and we have a traditional IRA, I still do like having some dollars in the Roth IRA, because let's think about how taxes are going to impact us later. So let's say we're like, oh, I only need $5,000 a month to live off of in retirement. So I'm going to withdraw $5,000 a month from my retirement account, my invested retirement account, 401k, IRA, whatever it is. But if we only have the 401k or the IRA, which were tax deferred, we've actually got to consider taking out more income, more money from those accounts to allocate to cover our tax bill. So instead of us taking out $5,000 a month, maybe we need to take out $7,000 a month, because we got to pay taxes on that money. So when we look at having to pay taxes, those taxes are going to start to eat away at our asset a little bit more quickly, because we've got to pay the government. Versus the Roth IRA or the Roth 401k, if we need $5,000, we just take out $5,000. We don't have to worry about paying any taxes. So if we only have tax deferred assets, the 401k, the IRA, it is good to consider including the Roth as a bucket where we can store dollars where we're not going to be taxed on later. Now, there's limits to contributing to each of these accounts. The 401k, the 2025 limit is $23,500. For the IRA, both the Roth and the traditional regular IRA, across both IRAs is $7,000. So we can't put $7,000 into our traditional IRA and $7,000 into the Roth. it's $7,000 in total across both accounts. And you can have a 401k as well as an IRA or a Roth IRA. You can have as many accounts as you want, but across all accounts, we have to consider those limits. The last thing I'll mention is something called a SEP IRA. And so a SEP IRA allows you as a business owner to actually put more than that $7,000 limit into your retirement account. Depending on how you're filing your taxes and if you have like an S corp or just sole prop, you can either put away either 20 or 25%, and you'd work with your tax professional or CPA to understand your specific number. But it's just a means for you to be able to put even more money away for retirement that is tax deferred, and it can lower your taxable income. So that's one that's not included. It's called a SEP, SEP IRA. And again, that is another vehicle I would recommend if you're a business owner and you're trying to put more than just, let's say, the IRA that allows you to put $7,000, but you really need to lower your taxable income. The SEP IRA will allow you to put more away into that account. So if you're a W-2 employee, you have access to, you possibly, have access to a 401k. If your employer doesn't offer any retirement vehicles for you, that is okay, because like I said, you still have the option to contribute to an IRA, which is an individual retirement account, which is not processed through your employer. So I'll just take a quick pause there. I know I said a lot. Any questions about these different accounts that you can contribute to and how the taxes work for each of them? Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so again, and I think I've shared some of these, like some of the common pitfalls that we'll see is not starting early. So no matter how much you can contribute, time is of the essence, and time is what is going to help you get to your retirement goal. So the sooner you can start, the better. The other piece is relying on Social Security. So depending on how you're currently set up as a nanny, whether you're being paid under the table or you're actually on payroll and getting a W-2, you may or may not be contributing to Social Security. Social Security is a tax that comes out of each paycheck. Okay, especially when we're a W-2, you should see the line item that says Social Security, and it's a tax. That part of that tax goes to your Social Security benefit. And there's a website you can go on through the government and actually download your Social Security statement. And you'll be able to see how much of your income from year to year is being taxed for Social Security. And depending on how long you've been working and reporting that income and paying that Social Security tax, you can also get a breakdown of what your estimated Social Security benefit will be come retirement. I will tell you, I have not seen any of my clients be able to retire off of Social Security. So Social Security is a great baseline of income. You might be getting $1,000, $2,000, maybe even up to $3,000 a month in Social Security benefit by the time you retire. But I can assure you it's not enough to retire off of. And again, depending on how you're being paid by your employer, you might not even be opted into paying into Social Security. And if you're not paying into Social Security, you're not going to receive any Social Security. So when this is over, I can make sure you all get the link so you know how to log into your account and actually view and download your Social Security statement. Other things that folks don't think about is the fact that because you're not, working maybe with a W-2 employer, what does that look like for healthcare? Will you qualify for certain state programs? And then the other thing is just withdrawing too much too soon. there is a completely different strategy and method once you're in the distribution phase of retirement in terms of how much you should be taking out each year. I recently had a client who was taking too much out of her retirement account each year. And not only was she getting taxed on all that money, and she didn't even need it, she was just taking it out because she didn't have a plan. But she was spending down her retirement assets a lot more quickly than she actually needed to. So these are just some things to think about. And working with a financial advisor, you can make sure you set up a plan once you're in distribution to consider some of these aspects. So I like to always leave any time I'm with someone, with a group, I like to think about what can we do in the next 24 hours that is going to make an impact on our current situation, that's going to make an impact that might feel like a small little seed right now, but every seed grows, right? And so just a commitment that I would love for us to kind of think about together is I am planting seeds today for the harvest I will enjoy tomorrow. And so as you're walking away from this, what is one step, one action item that you can commit to in the next 24 hours? And I say 24 hours because you've got to strike while the iron is hot, right? By the time you leave and start thinking about this again next week, you'll forget like, oh yeah, what did she say? Oh yeah, I was feeling fired up about opening this account or increasing my contributions or creating a budget or moving to a cash-based budget. What's one small step that you can take in the next 24 hours that'll move you just a little bit closer to your goal? That'll just plant that one little seed. So I'd love for you to think about that for a second. Again, I'm planting seeds today for the harvest I will enjoy tomorrow. And lastly, I want to just leave you with some next steps and a thank you. We appreciate you for attending and spending some time with us this Saturday morning. We know you could be anywhere. And I want to share my contact information if you have further questions or want to connect with me. I know it's only so much we can get to in an hour, but we will actually be doing a series of workshops. So stay tuned to hear about that. And everybody who joined us today is actually going to receive a free 15-minute retirement analysis. So just send me an email, or you can, that number there is my business, my office line. You can text that number and just let me know you attended the workshop today, and we can get that scheduled for you. But I want to leave a minute or two here to see if anybody has questions, or Rachel, to see if you have any final thoughts. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Do you mind if we just for the replays, if they also get that, and is there a time limit for the 15? We can extend that forever. Yeah,
that's fine. We can do that.
Perfect. That's the only thing I have for you.
Thank you. Alice, I see your comment there. Going to increase your contributions and possibly open up another type of IRA. Thank you for sharing that. You all have been a wonderful audience, and I can't wait to hopefully see you on our next session. Rachel, I'll turn it over to you to close us out.
Sounds good. Yeah, we will I'll keep those dates probably on the Facebook page, and then also in the groups that we got you guys in through as well. Just keep everybody up to date and probably put them on the website as well. So I think everybody should go enjoy their Saturday. The beautiful weather here in Minnesota, so take advantage of it. We don't get it well, we get it often, but it's been a while. It's winter. So have a great day. Thank you so much, Amber. We'll be in touch soon too.
Yes, bye.
Bye.